and the moon looked like a grin. Lovers walking the decks below must think it all so romantic. Dimly, she could hear the band playing in the ballroom. She was amazed she could even recognize the tune, a new one just come out that year. Some enchanted evening, you may meet a stranger. Her final act was to pray that he wouldn't dump her before she was truly dead. As cruel as his arms were, at least they were warm. She didn't want the ice-cold water to be the last thing she felt. The crewman making his rounds looked at his watch. He was 10 minutes early, and strangely enough, so was the ship's horn. He looked out over the water. Misty, but not too thick. Not because of fog, then. He made a mental note that the timer might have to be adjusted. No sooner did he have the thought than the whistle sounded again, low and long and inconsolable, he thought fancifully. Mary's larynx was built to emit a note so powerful she could be heard at least 10 miles away. For a reason he couldn't fathom, a sound he heard repeatedly every day and every night was giving him the shivers. He sensed a movement to his left at the far end of the deck and turned. Woo-ee. A couple was clenched together in what looked to be one steamy embrace. She was so wrapped up in him, she'd lost one of her shoes. They were too shadowed for him to see their faces, but he could make out that the man was wearing the uniform of a fellow crewman. Uh-oh, trouble there. It was against the rules to consort with guests. But it was none of his business. He'd walk down on the other side and give them another 10 minutes. If the crewman had any smarts, he'd be out of there with his dolly bird before then. The watchman turned again, back the way he'd come. The whistle sounded again. Yep, that would definitely have to be checked. The sailor remained motionless as the crew member on watch walked away. That had been too close, the lucky bastard. Good thing he'd decided to keep his nose out, or else he'd have found himself with a slit throat, and there'd be 2 bodies to get rid of. He needed to be quick, before the asshole came back. Looking down into the dead eyes of the woman he held, he spoke gently to her, as though they were still lovers. Now you know. Nobody walks away from me. Moving closer to the rail, he took a swift look around, then flopped her over the side. She slipped under the water with scarcely a splash, and the churning of the ship's motors did the rest, pushing her almost immediately out of sight. That should make the fish happy, he thought. But her shoe was still on deck. He picked it up and was about to throw it after her when he thought he heard the watch return. Fuck. Unnerved again, he slipped back behind the steps where he'd hidden while waiting for his victim and tossed the shoe into a vent unit. No one would find it there. But even if they did, he'd be long gone. The ship docked in the morning, and he planned to slip away before anyone could get nosy about the gouges on his arm. He stayed where he was, listening, forcing his breathing to slow. False alarm. He came out from behind the steps and with studied casualness headed back to his quarters. Not a moment too soon. The watchman had circled around a second time and was relieved to see that his fellow crewman and the girl he'd been with were gone. Now he could call it a night. He frowned as an overhead lantern flickered on and off. Then a second one. Then a third. What in the hell was going on with the Mary? Probably a short. Walking up to investigate, he noticed that lying on the deck directly beneath those lanterns, 1 second in shadow, 1 second illuminated in a sphere of light, was a doll. A Raggedy Ann doll. He bent to retrieve it, then thought better of it. Whatever family it belonged to would probably remember where they'd been and come looking for it. He left it there. The lights continued to flicker as he walked on. Part 1. The women arrive. A chemist, a cocktail waitress, a widow, and a witch. Chapter 1. Long Beach, California, Sunday, August 1st, 2004. Of the 4 women traveling in the snappy red Porsche on Interstate 710 toward the Queen Mary, only one of them was openly skeptical, and that was Jane. The other 2 passengers, the ones reserving judgment, were Angela and Rohini. The 4th chatted vigorously as she drove too far above the speed limit for the comfort of the other 3, and that was Cynthia. "You will love it, I promise you," she was saying. "Cynthia, are we driving a getaway car?